I sell photos online specifically for people to use in their online relationships. For an extra fee, I even help with voice and video calls. Until one day, a long-term client messaged me. Would £100,000 be enough for a real-life meetup? You can keep all the gifts he's bought too. Just as I was about to refuse, I saw my arch-nemesis's photo pop up on the screen. I kept a straight face and replied, "Are you saying you've been using my photos and videos to date him online this whole time?" Ding! This novel reminds you to click the subscribe button in the bottom right corner to read the complete novel. You've been deceived, dear, I said sincerely. Impossible, she insisted. He's transferred a lot of money to me. Isn't this the real Howard family heir? I searched the photo of Stephen Howard she sent on Google. It had already been overused by marketing accounts. I took a screenshot and showed it to her. She remained adamant. We've been working together for so long, do you think I'd lie to you? My online boyfriend is the Howard family heir. I sighed helplessly. From what I knew about Stephen Howard, he was already troubled enough by his real-life romantic entanglements. How could he have the energy for online dating? Especially with my photos and videos. Far from falling in love with me through a screen, he'd probably vomit at the sight. I replied to that girl, he didn't say anything when he saw my photo? He said it was beautiful. After all, you are gorgeous. She paused, then added, I even used your voice pack. He transfers me £52,000 every time I use it. Bloody hell. If Stephen really heard my affected, coquettish voice, he probably wouldn't be able to eat for 3 days. It's conclusive now, that person couldn't possibly be Stephen Howard. Thinking about this, I reviewed the photos and videos I sold to this girl again. The photos were all normal selfies. As for the videos, various tight short skirts with cat ear filters. It's fine, that person isn't Stephen Howard anyway. That girl continued to plead with me. Darling, please help. It's absolutely innocent. I told him I wasn't ready for physical contact yet. The meeting place is also in a busy central shopping mall. Seeing I didn't reply, she anxiously continued. If worst comes to worst, you could just see him for a minute and leave. Otherwise, he'll think I'm a catfish. How else can I get money out of him? A few seconds after sending that, I received a £300,000 transfer to my bank account. My hand paused as I was about to type a refusal. Come to think of it. How dare that person use Stephen Howard's photos for online dating? Aren't they afraid of being exposed when meeting in person? This girl can have me stand in for her, but no one can order Stephen Howard around. Perfect, I'll go see what kind of monster this person is. I deleted my words of refusal. All right then. Looking at it this way, this girl is quite generous too. TSK, I feel like even the real Stephen Howard isn't as generous as this impersonator. Afraid I'd change my mind, she quickly sent me several screenshots of her chats with the fake Stephen Howard. Hubby darling on the left, only love hubby on the right. The emojis sent were all spinning kittens, happy kittens, coquettish kittens. Fake Stephen Howard's replies were always, baby is so pretty. Transfer. Baby is so cute. Transfer. Transfer again. Good grief. This girl swiftly sent me the location, it's this shopping mall. I looked. Well. Young Master Howard does indeed like to shop at this mall. It's close to one of his family's villas. Maybe. I dialed Stephen Howard's number. Is there a chance to let that impersonator see Stephen appear before him in person and scare him to death? I forgot, I've been blocked. I silently turned off my phone. Following that girl's insistent instructions, I dressed up carefully and arrived at the shopping mall half an hour early to familiarize myself with the surroundings. To my surprise, I ran into Stephen Howard there. He looked casual, with one hand in his pocket. A girl was chattering away beside him. Stephen wasn't paying much attention, wearing an indifferent smile. But the fact that he didn't show any impatience throughout was already a miracle. I was stunned. Until Stephen noticed me, his smile disappeared. He cursed under his breath, just my luck. I heard it clearly but showed no reaction. The girl instinctively clung to Stefan's arm and looked at me hostilely. Who are you? Seeing that I didn't answer, she turned to Stefan with a pout. Stefan sneered, a pauper. Indeed. If I wasn't poor, why would I be here to meet a fake Stefan Howard? I chuckled and said in a slightly raised tone. It's my honor to be disliked by the great Mr. Howard. Stefan's face darkened instantly upon hearing this. He folded his arms and spoke mercilessly. Sabrina, which of these items here can you afford? As long as you can afford them, that's fine, I smiled and pointed to a nearby store. Didn't you buy me a bag from this shop before? The girl's eyes widened. What's your relationship? What relationship? First love. But dating this young master was the biggest mistake I've ever made in my life. Stefan didn't speak, and I couldn't be bothered to embarrass myself further. So I slung my bag over my shoulder and prepared to leave. Sabrina. His tone was light, but as arrogant and condescending as before. Which man have you tricked into paying for you this time? I turned back. Don't worry, Mr. Howard. I haven't found anyone more generous than you yet. Of course, that girl tricked doesn't count. Stefan had been pampered by countless people since childhood and never bothered to hide his emotions. For example, I could tell now that he was in a very bad mood. Afraid that he might interfere with my upcoming meeting, I paused for a moment and tried to appease him. You were right before. Someone like me won't find happiness. But as long as you're happy, that's what matters. Actually, I felt the so-called arch-enemies thing was more of Stefan unilaterally disliking me. I've never been one to make enemies, especially not with a generous ex-boyfriend. The young master who was hard to please back then was even less susceptible to this approach now. He sneered, his words cutting. Don't go. I want to see what kind of fool you've hooked this time. I froze. I didn't know what persona that girl and that fake Stefan Howard had created. What if it was some pure, innocent flower type? Wouldn't that blow everything up? With Stefan's personality, he could probably expose me in just a few sentences. I swallowed my pride and said, he's not as handsome as you, nor as rich. Mr. Howard, why do you insist on embarrassing me? The girl nodded in agreement. That's right, Stefan. Let's go. Stefan didn't even give the girl a proper look. His slender fingers pulled a card out of his pocket. The girl took it and instantly changed her attitude, leaving briskly. Then I'll go shopping. Stefan, just message me if you need anything. I smiled, she's quite cute. Stefan didn't respond to that, but he also showed no signs of leaving, just staring at me. But he had always been like this, willful and capricious. In the past, when he had a fever, I was worried sick, but he just lazily held my hand and said, "Want to try 40 degrees?" My eyes widened, and my face instantly turned red. Not from embarrassment, but from anger. Are you crazy? The corner of his lips curved up, unable to suppress his laughter. In the end, we did try, and he ended up in the emergency room. These were all childish memories. I lowered my gaze. Stefan quickly grew impatient. He raised an eyebrow. You didn't just make someone up, did you? I remained silent. His patience ran out. He answered a call from a friend. All right, I'll be there soon. Then he glanced at me, mockery rising in his eyes. Rather than carrying that 30-pound canvas bag, you should have swallowed your pride back then. With that, he strode away, getting further and further from me. I watched his tall, slender figure. Even his walk had an air of nonchalance. After breaking up with Stefan, I had packed up all the luxury items he had given me and sent them back to him. He only sent me a few words in response, "I don't want trash here." Then he blocked me. As for those luxury items, I heard from a friend that he threw them all in the rubbish bin in front of his villa. My phone kept buzzing with message notifications. "Hey, dear, are you there yet? How about meeting at the cafe?" I'll tell him I'm waiting for him at the cafe. Babe, reply quickly. I composed myself and replied, "Okay, I'm heading to the cafe now." After arriving at the cafe, I looked around. I messaged that girl, "Babe, bad news, Stefan Howard isn't here." Even worse news, there's only one handsome guy here. Impossible. He said he's already arrived, she replied anxiously. I sighed. Until I saw that one handsome man walking towards me. His eyes were slightly upturned with a small red mole under them, and he smiled warmly. Yet he somehow had a foxy aura about him. I cautiously took a step back. He spoke, his voice magnetic, Sabrina. I was speechless. I lowered my head to message that girl, aren't you, eh? You didn't use my name, did you? She replied instantly. Yes. I didn't dare use my real name. I just happened to send him your name when we were discussing photo and video prices earlier. Me, brilliant. I turned off my phone, took a deep breath, and looked up to greet the man. Hello. Up close, the man was even more handsome. His features were delicate but not feminine. He had a high, straight nose and thin, slightly curved lips, with a shiny earring in his left ear. He was much better looking than I had imagined, even a bit stunning. He really didn't need to use Stephen Howard's photos at all. I smiled awkwardly. You look quite different from the photos you sent me. He raised an eyebrow. I don't remember sending you any photos of me. What? My expression faltered for a moment. If this guy hadn't sent any photos, how on earth did that girlie determine he was Stephen Howard? Then I must have remembered wrong. I forced a smile, trying to hide my gritted teeth. Would you mind if I use the restroom first? Of course, he smiled warmly. Once in the restroom, I immediately called A. As soon as she picked up, I launched into a tirade. I told you, your online boyfriend is not Stephen Howard, not Stephen Howard. You didn't listen, and I thought it was just a catfish. Turns out he didn't even send you any photos. How the hell did you think he was Stephen Howard? There was a long silence on the other end. After a while, a bloody hell came through. It was a male voice. I was stunned. He's not Stephen Howard? How is that possible? Then who is he? He fired off a series of questions. I was also at my wit's end. You're asking me? Where did you fish this guy from? How can he be so unreliable? I thought it was a girl scamming for money online, who knew it was actually a guy. No wonder he wanted to buy my voice pack. What does he look like? Describe him quickly. Surprisingly, this guy was more anxious than me. Well, he's quite handsome actually, so don't worry about that. The other end went silent again. After a long while, his voice sounded somewhat desperate. He doesn't happen to have a red mole at the corner of his eye, does he? Yes, he does. Ah! I'm doomed! Now you know you're doomed? Weren't you afraid of being doomed when you were scamming him for money? If he had really scammed Stephen Howard, that would have been truly disastrous. With young Mr. Howard's temperament, he would definitely have skinned him alive, no doubt about it. After a while, he asked painfully, what should we do now? I was curious. From what I can see, this man seems much better than Stephen Howard. Did you think Stephen Howard was some kind of saint? No, you don't understand. My brother is much scarier than Stephen. If Stephen wanted to deal with me, my grandmother could still intervene. But if my brother wants to punish me, no one would dare to interfere. As he spoke, he burst into tears again. I widened my eyes. What did you say? He was clearly in despair. No wonder Stephen said I was stupid. Am I really that stupid? What should we do now? Should I run away? No. He gritted his teeth. If you run away, he will definitely investigate. He'll trace it back to me for sure. I was speechless. He said decisively, why don't you just take over my WhatsApp account? Pretend you've been chatting with him all along. My brother isn't bad looking anyway, and he's quite generous with money. I was shocked. Before I could answer, he muttered to himself. I never imagined he could be so generous in a relationship. Damn, why isn't he like this when giving me pocket money? Forget it, I refused. Since breaking up with Stephen Howard, I've come to understand. What doesn't belong to you will never belong to you, no matter what. Especially these rich young masters. Don't have too many unrealistic fantasies about them. Moreover, if I really got involved with this man and Stephen found out, who knows how the young master would react? No, He might just mock this man. Your taste is terrible, getting involved with someone like Sabrina. I silently pondered this in my heart and sighed again. The voice on the phone became displeased. Aren't you providing after-sales service? They really are family. This thought process is just as sick as Stefan's. I said flatly, I'm hanging up. £500,000. I'll add another £500,000. He became frantic. I've already put up all my New Year's money. My brother absolutely cannot find out about this. £1,000,000. That's daylight robbery. You'll surely get a lot from my brother. Do you have to squeeze me dry too? Then forget it, I said. Deal. He collapsed. What's your brother's name? I asked. Edmund Howard. I suddenly looked up. You mean Stefan Howard's cousin who's always abroad? Yes. I tidied up my dress in the bathroom, touched up my makeup, took a deep breath, and walked out. Edmund Howard was waiting for me outside. To be honest, Edmund Howard didn't look as refined and orderly as his name suggested. He gave off an air of ease that seemed to exist outside the rules. His smile was warm, like a fox. Why would someone so rich and powerful be on online dating? I took the initiative to link arms with Edmund. He paused imperceptibly, his smile growing wider. Would you like to go shopping? Or have dinner first? He asked. Either is fine, I said. Then he took me from store to store. Unlike Stefan Howard, he patiently commented on how each bag and piece of clothing looked on me, then bought everything. Stefan would be too lazy to look, just sit down and play on his phone while I shopped, then pay and leave when I was done. It was strange, like a boyfriend had fallen from the sky. But Edmund was definitely not as easygoing as he appeared on the surface. The more someone seemed that way, the more dangerous they were. However, for now. He even called 2 bodyguards to carry the shopping bags behind us. Sabrina, I've made a reservation at that restaurant you said you wanted to try. Edmund said with a slight smile. Let's go. I responded enthusiastically. Do you remember which one it was? He lowered his gaze languidly, as if looking at prey in the palm of his hand. Which one? I had no idea. At this point, I couldn't very well take out my phone and ask A. The atmosphere grew quiet for a moment. My heart fluttered as I pressed my lips together. I felt a chill. I finally understood what that made him meant when he said Edmund was scarier than Stefan. Stefan wore his emotions on his face. If you angered him, you'd face the consequences immediately. But Edmund Howard was different. I couldn't read him. Like now, I didn't know what he meant by suddenly asking this question. I moved my lips, about to speak, when he said with an enigmatic smile, his voice deep and smooth. It's all right. Sabrina's busy, it's normal to be forgetful. I'll take you there and you'll know. I nodded hurriedly. Edmund was still nice. If it had been Stefan who found out I'd forgotten something about him, he would have coldly mocked me for 5 hours straight without repeating himself. Upon arriving at the restaurant, the waiter respectfully greeted Edmund, Mr. Howard. He then led us to the most secluded private room, which had an excellent ambience, even featuring a koi pond. I sat down across from Edmund. His sleeves were loosely rolled up, revealing his well-defined hands. The pale skin accentuated the slightly protruding blue veins. I didn't pick up the menu, you can order. I'm not picky. Edmund chuckled softly, all right. Taking this opportunity, I messaged that mate A. Did you tell Edmund you wanted to eat at a Western restaurant? I almost blew my cover. Any other details I should know? Tell me quickly. Suddenly, the door to the private room was pushed open. A familiar voice rang out, Edmund? You're back in the country? I froze instantly. Stefan clicked his tongue and said listlessly. I thought this room was empty, so I didn't book it. There's no space in the other rooms, let's share a table. I lowered my head like a quail, trying to disappear. But I forgot that Stefan once told me he could recognize me even if I turned to ashes. Sabrina? The previously casual voice suddenly turned cold. I dared not raise my head even more. Unexpectedly, my phone lit up with a reply at that moment. Huh? How is that possible? I never told my brother where I wanted to eat. I don't like Western food, I prefer hot pot. My pupils dilated. Look at me, Sabrina. Stefan gritted his teeth. Edmund's fingertips lightly tapped the table. Is that how you speak to your sister-in-law? What did you say? Stefan raised his voice. At this point, I slowly raised my head, forcing an awkward smile. What a coincidence. Finally, following Edmund's cue, I added, little brother. Who the hell is your little brother? Stefan immediately bristled, pointing at me while questioning Edmund. She dated me before, didn't you know? Edmund leisurely took a sip of coffee, I didn't. Are you two still together? No. We broke up long ago, I quickly interjected. Shut up, Stefan's voice carried suppressed anger, each word seemingly squeezed through his teeth. He clenched his fists tightly, his knuckles turning white from the force. Edmund, you didn't check when I was dating her? Now you're bullshitting that you don't know Sabrina? Edmund crossed his legs, relaxed in posture, and managed to chuckle leisurely in this suffocating situation. Yes. So what? Stefan's eyes reddened with anger. I sighed inwardly and spoke up. Don't be angry. Maybe we just weren't meant to be. Why don't you have some water to calm down? As I said this, I was about to stand up to pour water. Sabrina, Edmund glanced at me lightly. My heart tightened, and I immediately sat back down firmly. Stefan was incredulous. You always argued with me, but you listened to him so obediently? Are you under a spell? Mainly because Edmund was a bit more intimidating. After a long while. Stefan's voice was slightly hoarse. When did you two get together? I couldn't answer this question. Edmund calmly spoke, the end of last year. Specifically? Stefan seemed determined to get an exact date. The day after Christmas. My expression froze. Stefan's lips curled with a mocking chill. Sabrina, you're really something. Stefan and I had broken up on Christmas Day. But the person who started talking to Edmund the day after Christmas wasn't me. I remained silent, bitterly swallowing the truth, accepting the seamless transition of blame. Seeing that I dared not speak, Stefan stormed out, slamming the door behind him. Edmund didn't seem to mind. He thoughtfully said, if you don't like the food, please let me know. I nodded nervously. He looked at me with surprise. Are you afraid of me? As he smiled, the red birthmark at the corner of his eye was mesmerizingly attractive. I moved my lips. Did you investigate me before? He nodded, saying nonchalantly. Earlier, my family was curious about Stefan's girlfriend, so they asked me to look into it. Then you. I was shocked, still met with me. Edmund's smile deepened. I've thought my little sister-in-law was cute for a long time. I uncomfortably rubbed my nose. But something still felt off. A long time ago? Before he investigated me? Yes, and Edmund's probing just now. Doesn't that mean he knows the person he was chatting with online was someone else? I'm just a stand-in for the meetup. I trembled, afraid to speak rashly. Sabrina, Edmund said, come back to the Howard family with me next week. I was stunned. What? He smiled helplessly. You said before that you wanted to meet my family, and mentioned it several times. Don't you remember, Sabrina? Feeling uneasy inside, I didn't dare to answer casually after the previous experience, is that so? But I'm not ready yet, I unconsciously gripped the hem of my clothes tightly. You said before that your family wants a bride price of £3 million. Sabrina, I can transfer it to your account anytime. Edmund looked at me seriously. I was terrified. What astronomical bride price? Is this what Edmund's brother said? I said with a shaky voice, no rush, no rush. Let's develop our relationship further. By the end, my voice was almost floating away. This family is too scary. The atmosphere fell silent for a moment. Edmund lowered his gaze, his smile fading. He said softly, I'm sorry, I was too hasty. I was stunned. Could he really be deeply in love? Then if he finds out that the person who's been sweet-talking him online is actually a man? And I've also been complicit with his brother in deceiving him. I held my head in my hands. Things seemed to be developing out of control. Judging by Edmund's expression, he seems genuinely upset. Sigh, it's understandable. Who would spend so much money on an online date if they weren't truly in love? I stood up quietly. I'm going to the bathroom again. Your brother wants to take me to the Howard family. I messaged A on WhatsApp. He replied, okay then. I asked, is this right? I thought he would surely be jumping up and down, but surprisingly he seemed calm. At this point, what's done is done. Name your price to help me cover up this lie. I stared at the message oddly. I replied, this isn't just about covering up a lie. Have you thought about how one lie leads to countless more? What if I can't get out of this unscathed? He sent me a voice message. Sigh, who knew it would develop like this? But actually, you wouldn't lose out being with my brother. He's handsome, rich, and never dated before. Though he may lack experience, he's well endowed. With a bit of training from you, he could definitely become the perfect boyfriend. My eye twitched uncontrollably as I replied lifelessly. There really isn't a single normal person in your family, is there? I only have one request. When you become my sister-in-law, could you suggest to my brother to increase my allowance? I said, I don't recall agreeing to this yet. If I ran into Stefan at their house, I'd be done for. I didn't dare take that risk. 10 seconds later, £5 million was deposited into my bank account. Arthur's message had a hint of a whine. Dear, please help me out. Just get through this period, and you can break up whenever you're bored. Just think of it as me using your photos to catfish someone. And to make up for it, I helped you get a boyfriend, okay? I stared at my bank balance. But then again, what's the worst that could happen if I got together with Edmund? Stefan couldn't kill me, could he? Thinking this, I returned to the private room. Meeting Edmund's eyes, I blinked and asked, so when are we going to the Howard house? I walked into the Howard estate on Edmund's arm, taking in the grandeur of the sprawling manor. As we made our way inside, more and more people appeared. It truly was an impressive family. I followed Edmund's lead in greeting everyone. The Howards were all very welcoming, without the intimidating air I had expected from such a wealthy clan. No one gave me cold looks or put on airs. Instead, they smiled warmly and greeted me. So you're Edmund's girlfriend? My, aren't you a pretty little thing? The old lady will be delighted. I smiled shyly in response. Then a young man appeared, grinning as he said, Hey bro, sis-in-law. Edmund chuckled coolly. The young man immediately ducked behind my other arm. Arthur Knightley. The quiet voice made Arthur freeze. He turned mechanically. I followed Arthur's gaze to the source of the voice. Stefan stood with one hand in his pocket. But Stefan didn't meet my eyes. He was glaring at Arthur. What are you running around for? Think you're the only one with long legs? Arthur pouted. I was just saying hello to my brother and sister-in-law, Stefan. If I didn't greet them, you'd say I have no manners. Stefan scoffed. Ha, sister-in-law? I felt my blood run cold. But in the end, Stefan said nothing more. He didn't look at Edmund or me once, simply dragging Arthur away. Go do your homework. How dare you prance about after scoring 20 in maths? Arthur whined pitifully as he was hauled off. I pondered as I watched them leave. Arthur's voice was almost identical to A's. It must be him. I turned to Edmund. Is that your brother? Why does he have a different surname? Edmund smiled faintly. He took our mother's name. I nodded. Soon after, Edmund was called up to the study. I went to keep the elderly Mrs. Howard company. She held my hand, sighing, You're such a perfect match for our Edmund. As she spoke, she wiped away a tear. I quickly offered her a tissue. Edmund, that boy, so mature from such a young age. His parents, it's wonderful he's found a girl he likes. You must be happy together. The old lady gripped my hand tightly, her expression wistful then joyful. After spending some time with Mrs. Howard, she said, Edmund mentioned you don't like being cooped up. Our gardens are lovely, why don't you take a stroll? All right, I agreed. I walked into the garden, feeling relaxed as the gentle floral scents wafted around me. Edmund had told the others I wasn't good with crowds. So they'd been instructed to let me get some air in the garden without disturbing me if I seemed overwhelmed. But some people clearly didn't listen. I heard footsteps approach, unsurprised. I didn't turn around. Sabrina, what exactly are you thinking? Are you that desperate to marry into the Howard family? Stefan's voice was icy. I ran my fingers over a rose petal, replying calmly. You're welcome to expose my true nature to your entire family. After a long pause, Stefan asked in a muffled voice, what true nature? I answered indifferently, your ex-girlfriend. The one who spent your money. The one who got with Edmund right after breaking up with you. Stefan was silent for a long time. His lips barely moved as he said, I don't want you to leave a bad impression on them. I was confused. You still care about that? His voice was hoarse. In case someday in the future, you could still become Stefan Howard's wife. He seemed to realize what he'd said and abruptly stopped speaking. My eyes widened slightly in shock. After a long moment, I shook my head. That won't happen. The wine glass in Stefan's hand fell to the ground. There was a crisp sound of shattering glass. Why did you get together with Edmund the day after breaking up with me? How did you two end up together? Stefan grabbed my wrist, gripping tightly. I didn't want to struggle with him here. It's none of your business. Sabrina Chaplin. I stopped trying to pull away. I looked up in surprise. Stefan's voice just now had clearly cracked with emotion. Stefan Howard and I broke up after being together, without any dramatic or unavoidable reasons. It was simply because Stefan's spoiled rich boy temper was too much to handle. If I didn't reply to his messages instantly, he would get angry. If I spent too much time on my studies, he would get angry. If I said one extra word to another guy, he would get angry. He'd even get angry if a male celebrity's trending topic popped up on my Twitter notifications. Are you secretly searching for him on Twitter? What, am I not handsome enough for you? When he got angry, it was incredibly difficult to appease him. I would humble myself and bring him porridge or soup, but he'd pour it all out. I'd send him messages explaining on every social media platform, but he'd block me on all of them. I'd go to his house to find him, but he'd refuse to see me, telling the butler to send me away. I'd wait for him on his way to class, but he'd ignore me completely. If I followed behind him, he'd coldly raise an eyebrow and sneer. Sabrina, you make me angry every day. Do you think I have endless patience? In the end, reconciliation would only happen days later. When he'd unblock me on some social media and send me a one. I'd go find him again. He deigned to give me a glance, saying, You're lucky I like you, otherwise I wouldn't forgive you so easily. My friends would sympathize. Sabrina, which one of you is the boyfriend and which is the girlfriend in this relationship? But after saying that, they'd continue, Still, you can't have it both ways. He's handsome and spends money on you, that's already better than most guys. If he has a bit of a temper, it's only right for you to coax him. Otherwise, why would he choose to be with you instead of all those influencers and celebrities? At first, I thought the same way. He was the golden boy, condescending to be with me. It was normal if his temper was a bit foul, I just needed to placate him. But later, the last time. It was Christmas. I had carefully chosen a scarf for him, spending £3,000. I smiled as I put it around his neck, saying, Merry Christmas. He snorted, So you remembered to buy me a gift. I haven't wasted my affection on you. A second later, he noticed the scarf and his expression changed instantly. He frowned, his face darkening. Don't you know I already have a gray scarf? Do you even care about me at all? I stumbled but sincerely said, I remember you have scarves in all colors. Look, this one has little snowflakes on it. I really spent a long time choosing it. If you really cared about me, you'd know I have many gray scarves, he pressed aggressively. My voice grew weaker, I'm sorry, I'll go exchange it for another one, okay? What color would you like? He yanked the scarf from his neck and threw it on the ground. His eyes turned cold. If you cared, wouldn't you know what color scarf I want? Sabrina, after dating me for so long, you still don't care about me at all. Like before, he didn't spare me another glance and turned to leave. Christmas night was lively, with rows of Christmas trees lining the streets, adorned with shining star ornaments. People were laughing and chatting to the cheerful tune of Merry Christmas. I just looked down at the scarf on the ground. An old lady collecting rubbish with a basket hesitated by the scarf. Miss, this scarf. I don't want it anymore, I shook my head. I turned and left as well. When I got home, as expected, I had been blocked again. This time, I just leaned on the balcony, listening to the music drifting from the nearby street. The December wind was bitingly cold. That night, I stayed up packing all the gifts Stefan had given me and sent them back to him. From then on, I had no more entanglements with this young master. So I really couldn't connect the down-and-out Stefan Howard before me with the Stefan in my memory. He gripped my hand tightly, his voice hoarse. Sabrina, please don't be with Edmund, okay? I lowered my eyes, not looking at him. Seeing that I didn't answer, he pulled me into his arms with trembling hands. His tone carried a hint of pleading that he probably didn't even notice himself. I wanted you to come home with me before, but you always refused. Why are you willing to go home with him? I pressed my lips together and asked, is it that you can't accept me being with someone else? Or that you can't accept me being with Edmund specifically? Stefan, you're right. I like tricking men into spending money on me. I broke free from his embrace. I promise you, in a few days when I've packed up my things, I'll disappear from your lives forever, okay? I was trying my best to reassure Stefan calmly and gently. Don't be like this. Your future sister-in-law will surely be an excellent person, and so will your wife. I won't get together with Edmund just to get revenge on Stefan. Moving to another city has always been part of my plan, it's not out of spite. Stefan turned his head away, roughly wiping the corner of his eye with his fingertip. He closed his eyes. Sabrina, you're always like this. If you truly cared about someone, you wouldn't always be so emotionless. I hesitated. Are you saying that your previous behavior was because you cared about me? If you really loved me, after we broke up you'd either be unable to let go or never want to see me again. But you just treat me as a tool in your life, a part of your journey. You can still calmly say hello, thank you when you look back. Can you honestly say you ever truly loved me? Stefan's voice was choked with emotion. In the moonlight, he looked very thin and fragile. I'm sorry, I sighed, wanting to end this conversation quickly, and soften my voice. I shouldn't have appeared in front of you. I really didn't expect the thing with Arthur. Otherwise I would never have gotten involved with Edmund. Shouldn't have appeared in front of me? Why couldn't you choose to keep entangling with me instead? Stefan's voice was trembling at the end. I took a step back. Although I had never seen Stefan look so broken before and found it quite novel, I was starting to lose patience. When we were together, you tormented me plenty. Now that we've broken up, you're still criticizing me. Young master, why can't you just grow up a little? Because you never loved me. Stefan's words fell. His voice was very soft. But I felt like that sentence crashed heavily in the entire garden, making even the fragrance of the flowers lose their scent for a moment. Did I ever love Stefan? I don't know. If you think that being inexplicably angry and volatile every day like a madman is the only way to show love, then I have nothing more to say, I said. Then what proof is there that you loved me? Stefan raised his eyelids, his eyes dull. Seeing that I didn't speak, he curved his lips in self-mockery. I walked past him. See, even now you're still obsessing over whether I loved you or not. If we hadn't broken up, you would have driven me crazy sooner or later. That's how Stefan is. He always has his own young master's logic. Once you fall into his chain of logic, you'll break down. But if you stay away from his chain of logic, someone else will break down instead. Actually, it's the same with anyone. After finishing dinner, Edmund drove me home. He didn't mention anything about Stefan and me. The half-open car window let the wind blow through my hair, calming my mind. Actually, after confronting Stefan, I had already become exceptionally clear-headed and calm. I believed Edmund must have noticed something was off either about me or Arthur. But I had promised Arthur, so I wouldn't reveal the truth. I simply said, "You're a nice person, but our social status is too different. We're not suitable for each other." Edmund kept one hand on the steering wheel, listening to my words and glancing at me. He raised an eyebrow. "Are you friend-zoning me?" "No, that's not it." Suddenly, he blurted out, "Do you think I'm stupid?" I was taken aback. "Huh? I've known for a while that the person chatting with me wasn't you," he said casually. My brain froze. I'm not so stupid that I couldn't tell it was Arthur chatting with me. He turned the steering wheel, speaking lightly. "I knew he was using your photos to chat with me. If you knew, why did you still transfer money to him? And say those things?" I couldn't believe it. "I transferred the money, but as for the chatting," Edmund paused briefly. I had my secretary reply. "Why? What was the purpose?" I turned to look at him. Edmund didn't speak, just returned my gaze with an ambiguous look. I quickly went through recent events in my mind and made a deduction. "Did you transfer that £3 million when Arthur asked me to come to the Howard family?" Edmund didn't deny it. At the time, I was puzzled why Arthur could suddenly be so generous to give £3 million when he had gone to such lengths to pretend to be a girl to scam money. "So that's how it was." I chose my words carefully. "Was it a trap from the beginning, or?" Edmund explained, "Arthur tried to scam money from me, and I was quite angry at first. But since he was using your photos, I didn't expose him right away. After I returned to the UK, I immediately confronted him." "But why?" I stared at Edmund, speaking frankly. "Do you have a crush on me? Do you like me? Did you lure me to the Howard family to be your wife?" My rapid-fire questions made Edmund Howard pause. After a while, he sighed. "Because we've known each other for a long time." He didn't directly answer my questions. I narrowed my eyes, filtering through memories in my mind. After quite some time, I finally had a vague recollection. Before Stefan and I got together, we were practically arch-enemies. That was back in high school. He never gave me a pleasant look. Until one day, during a parent-teacher meeting, someone came and spoke to Stefan Howard. Within seconds, Stefan walked away. There was only space next to me, so he sat down there. I was curious, who was that? He responded stiffly, "Someone I dislike." I was surprised. There's actually someone you dislike more than me. For Stefan to actively avoid someone by sitting next to me. Stefan, annoying. "So who is it?" I pressed. Stefan frowned for a while. "My cousin." I looked over at the person sitting diagonally in front of us. I could only see his profile. Even just his profile was incredibly handsome. That outline, that nose. I praised admiringly, "So handsome." Stefan's face instantly darkened. "You have terrible taste." Seeing him unhappy made me happy. I grinned, resting my chin on my hand. "Introduce me to your cousin." "I'll be your sister-in-law." Stefan abruptly stood up, shaking the desk with his movement. Everyone in the class turned to look at us. He glared at me, gritting his teeth. "In your dreams." Then he directly left the classroom. I was bewildered, and made eye contact with Stefan's cousin as he turned his head. His cousin gave a light chuckle. After the teacher finished speaking, I got up and poked Edmund. "So you're Stefan's cousin?" He nodded. "You seem so nice. Why is Stefan's temper so bad?" I couldn't help asking. Edmund's expression didn't change. He lowered his gaze, his eyes curving slightly. "His parents love him." I didn't understand, but frowned. "But I think you're better, much better than him." Edmund looked up in surprise, our eyes meeting. I shrugged. "I'm just being honest." "I'm going to eat now, bye." Later I learned why Stefan's cousin said his parents love him. Because they loved Stefan, he got whatever he wanted, and didn't have to care about anyone's feelings or opinions. Regardless of whether Stefan's parents' educational philosophy was problematic. There was no doubt they loved Stefan very much. But Stefan's cousin was different. I learned from Stefan that his cousin's parents had a business marriage, were emotionally incompatible, and neglected both his cousin and his cousin's brother since childhood. Only their grandmother liked his cousin, constantly nagging him to find a girlfriend soon. Not to be lonely, saying he earned money but had no one to spend it on. Perhaps children who mature early have to be independent sooner. His cousin was very capable, always top of his class as a child, and never failed in investments or business ventures after university. Memories of the past lingered in my mind before fading away. I said sincerely, "I truly think you're better than Stefan." Edmund was taken aback, seemingly surprised by my directness. "Thank you. Those words of yours," Edmund's thoughts drifted, encouraged me for a long time. I remained silent. "I just wanted to see you again, and let Grandma meet you too." Edmund stopped the car outside my apartment building and handed me a bank card. So I used some not-so-proper means. I looked down at the bank card in my hand. "You don't like me, but that doesn't matter." Under the warm yellow streetlight, Edmund's eyes lost their striking intensity and became gentler. "Stop selling photos online. You can share your beauty, but not in exchange for money." I don't remember exactly how it ended. When I came to my senses, I was already in the lift going up, holding the bank card. The card in my hand felt warm. I knew without checking that it must contain a very substantial amount of money. I clutched the bank card tightly. After breaking up with Stefan Howard, I was in a daze for a while. It wasn't because of the pain of a breakup, but because I had fallen into a contradictory cycle. My friends didn't understand me. "Are you crazy? Breaking up with Stefan Howard? Go win him back quickly. Do you think you can find someone better than him?" Actually, I felt I was no worse than him except for not being as rich. Stefan was good-looking, but so was I. We went to the same high school and got into the same university. I even thought I had a much better temperament than him. But in everyone's eyes, I wasn't good enough for him because I didn't have money. This was a fact. In today's world, money is very important. So I wanted to be rich. I wanted it so badly. If I had money, would they still think I wasn't good enough for Stefan? The day after the breakup, someone who had seen a video I posted on social media sent me a private message. "Hi babe, can I pay to buy your photos?" I replied, "What do you mean? I want to have an online relationship, but I'm not good looking. I'll pay you, and you sell me your photos. After that, you can't post them on social media anymore." That doesn't seem right. £1,000 per photo, £3,000 per video, £2,000 for a custom voice package. I hesitated for a long time. They messaged again, "Don't worry, it's absolutely not illegal." In the end, I agreed. I lay on the bed, clutching my bank card and lost in thought. At that moment, Arthur sent me a voice message to apologize. "I'm so sorry. It's all my brother's fault for pressuring me. Honestly, I think everything happened too quickly as well. I saw you with Stefan in the garden. Does he fancy you too? Don't worry, I haven't told anyone. I think both Stefan and my brother have lost their minds. Don't take it to heart." For some reason, Arthur's serious tone coupled with his words made me want to laugh. I asked the question that had been bothering me. "Why did you always think you were deceiving Stefan, not Edmund?" Arthur got excited when he heard my question and sent me several exclamation marks. Another 60-second voice message came through. Bloody hell! It's such a sob story. I don't actually have either of them as WhatsApp contacts because they both deleted me for posting too many status updates. So I can only see their WhatsApp through the family group chat. Their profile pictures are both very minimalist and dark, and they don't have nicknames in the group. When I was tagged in the family chat about going for a meal, I remembered my brother was abroad, so I thought it must be Stefan asking me out. So I copied that WhatsApp number and added it with a secondary account. He asked what I wanted, and I couldn't explain properly. He was about to delete me when I sent your photo, and his attitude changed immediately. I thought to myself, I didn't know Stefan was so shallow. Who knew there'd be such a mix-up? As I listened, my feelings became increasingly complex, but my mind gradually drifted off. Before I knew it, I had fallen asleep. The next day, I woke up in a daze. Seeing the bank card in my hand, I instantly became alert. After much deliberation, I decided I couldn't keep this money. I had to return it. I'd already earned quite a bit, enough to start a new life in the city I loved, away from my old friends and my old self. I flung open the door in a flurry. Stefan was leaning against my doorframe, dark circles under his eyes. I nearly had a heart attack from the shock. Taking a deep breath, I shoved the bank card into Stefan's hand. "Perfect timing, you can take this back to Edmund," I said. Stefan's dull eyes suddenly lit up. "You don't want his money? Then what do you want from me?" I glanced at him. "I'm poor. I don't deserve to spend your money." I tried to close the door, but Stefan blocked it. I was wrong. I shouldn't have said that. What? How could he be apologizing? Was he possessed? I scrutinized Stefan. "You said you were always the one chasing me. Now it's my turn to chase you," he said. Stefan was clearly still inexperienced in pursuit, but he'd always been first-rate at being unreasonable. I folded my arms. "Don't you have a new flame?" Stefan furrowed his brow, taking a moment to recall. Then he smirked. "That was Arthur's friend. Her family won't give her pocket money. She heard from Arthur that I'm wealthy, so she pestered me to lend her money." Seeing I was still looking at him, Stefan's Adam's apple bobbed slightly. "I've been having someone watch you. When I found out you were at the mall, I wanted to run into you by chance." I scoffed. "Run into me with a young girl in tow?" Stefan struggled for words. "I thought you'd be jealous." "Well, you thought wrong." I moved to close the door. Stefan wedged himself in the doorframe. He said softly, "Then give me a chance to pursue you. Let me suffer all the torment I put you through before." I'd never seen the young master so humble. After savoring the moment briefly, I still closed the door. No. A minute later, I received a WhatsApp message from Stefan. "Sabrina, want to have dinner together later?" Stefan had blocked me before, so I hadn't bothered with it. Now he'd unblocked me himself. I smiled at the message. My fingers moved. Now it was my turn to block him. Stefan messaged me on phone next. I blocked him again. Until Twitter was the last app left, Stefan wrote, "You've made your point. I'll keep chasing you." I was speechless. This persistence. How did it feel like I was the one being tormented whether I was chasing or being chased? I flopped onto the sofa and received another unexpected friend request. I thought Edmund and I would never cross paths again. I hadn't expected Arthur to recommend me as a contact to Edmund. After I accepted, Edmund wrote, "Then I'll officially start pursuing you now, Sabrina." Wait, I thought we'd parted ways last night? That bank card was just a small token. "Would you like to have a candlelit dinner tonight?" I continued to sprawl on the sofa. The sun was so bright today, shining through the window onto the sofa, a bit dazzling. But it was quite warm. With such coziness. "I think I'll take another nap first."